Hi! Within this lecture, we're gonna focus on solving Kali Linux installation problems on MacBooks. So if you have Windows or if you already have a working Kali Linux, you may skip this lecture. So depending on your Mac operating system, or actually depending on your processor, the things that you should do can vary in this lecture. So if you're using an Intel-based MacBook, okay, not M1 chip or ARM chip, if you're using an Intel chip, then it should work out for you. But if it didn't, then let me show you what you should do. You should check for the security, you should check for the permissions, because in the Intel chips, it should be already compatible, the virtualization should already be enabled, and everything should be in order. Okay, there is nothing much to do over there. But if you're using M1 chip like ARM chips, ARM processors, then most probably the VirtualBox will cause you some problems, and we're gonna use something called UTM. It's kind of an alternative to the VirtualBox itself. And then we're going to install the Kali Linux inside of that UTM machine. Again, it might work. You can try to install the ISO like we did in the previous lecture in the VirtualBox as well, but it may cause some problems. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to deal with the UTM machine as well, because it's a little bit different than the VirtualBox. So if you're using Intel chip, then you're gonna have to go to the system preferences, okay, and find the security and privacy icon like that, and click on it. And once you do that, you can go to General tab, and if you see something like a permission for Oracle or permission for VirtualBox over here, then you should give that permission. Okay, you can just click on this key, give your password or your fingerprint, give that permission, and then that's it. Then you should just try it one more time. It should work out for you. If you're using Intel chip MacBooks, then nothing's gonna happen. So I'm going to open the Kali Linux or open the Google to show you something else. If you're using M1 chips, you're gonna have to Google this, Mac get UTM. Okay, just Google search it, and here you go. This is virtual machines for Mac. So this is completely free. You can download it from here or from the Mac App Store as well. So this works in M1 chips as well. So as you can see, the website is mac-getutm.com, but again, you can just download it from the App Store. So I have downloaded it already. Okay, and I'm just going to show you how to install it. It's pretty easy. You're just gonna have to drag and drop the application to the applications folder, and that's it. So there is nothing specific to installation, but the usage of the UTM is a little bit different than the VirtualBox itself. So let me go to applications and find the UTM for you. Yeah, here you go. Double click on it, double click on the UTM. It will ask you if you really want to open that up, and just open that up, and here you go. Now, the next thing that you should do, you should create a new virtual machine and just virtualize the ISO that we are going to download now, or you can just emulate it, but it's not what we're looking for. We're looking for to virtualize it. Okay, so over here, we're going to choose the Linux as the operating system, as you might imagine. And over here, we're just going to select the browse the ISO image. And obviously, this is not only for Linux. You can virtualize Windows over here. You can virtualize other virtual machines as well. But our OVA does not work in this case. We have to find the ISO image like we have done in the previous lecture. And the good thing is, Kali Linux already provides us with that kind of images, like ISO specifically created for M1 chips. Okay, where to get them? Obviously, we're gonna get them in the kali.org. So forget about the OVAs. You can use the OVAs inside of VMware, inside of VirtualBox, but in the UTM, it it causes some problems. It's better to use ISO images. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to kali.org as usual, and I'm going to show you where to find it. So let me go to kali.org and find the downloads section. And over here, rather than the virtual machines, if you see the UTM in the virtual machines in the future, obviously you can download it and use it. But right now they do not have that option. So I'm going to go for the bare metal again. So in the bare metal, we have downloaded the regular 64-bit, but this time I'm going to go with the Apple M1 chip. And again, when you're looking for this, you may see some other alternatives rather than only the installer, weekly and stuff. But we're just gonna go for the default option, okay? And not for 64-bit this time. We're gonna go with Apple M1 chip. So just go over here, select the Apple M1 chip, and find the installer or the default option and just download it. Okay, it should be like 2 gigabytes, 3 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes at most when you're watching this. Right now it's 2 gigabytes, 2.4 gigabytes for me. I'm just going to download it, and I have already downloaded it in order not to make you wait, and I'm just going to choose it from here. So let me find it and open just this thing on my desktop. And again, we're going to go for ISO, not the OVA. So I'm going to browse this and select the ISO image that I have downloaded for M1 chip and click next. So it will ask us for the memory allocation as in the VirtualBox. So I'm just going to go with 2 gigabytes. You can go with 1 gigabyte. And by the way, CPU cores, I'm going to go with 2. You can go with 1 if you want. So for the storage, 64 gigabytes, maybe you can go with 40. Okay. I'm not gonna change anything else. Maybe I can just name this Kali Linux rather than Linux, and here you go. However, if we start this right now, clicking on the play button, you will see some kind of problems. As you can see, we are inside of something called EFI shell right now, EFI shell right now. We need to disable this. So I'm just gonna close this down, and I'm gonna right click on here and say edit. So if we say edit, we can see the options. So if you go to system, you can obviously change the memory, you can obviously change the architecture and stuff. First of all, I'm gonna find the ARM64 architecture from here. And if you click on the show advanced settings, you can disable the FE boot, UEFI boot from here. That's what it's going to take us from the FE shell. But right now, if I play it, I'm still getting errors. Okay, as you can see. It should have to do something with the storage. So I'm gonna go back to the system and make sure over here you find the latest version of the KeyEMU. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna find the 6.2 ARM. If you cannot find the latest version, you can try to use mine as well, like 6.2. So we're still getting this error. So let me go back to here and let me check the drives. Yeah, here you go. That is the problem. As you can see, there are a couple of drives over here. What we need to do, we need to set it up in a way that this ISO image is actually connected in a correct order. So I'm going to delete everything over here, okay? And I'm going to show you how to create it from scratch. You're gonna have to say import and choose the ISO folder, ISO file, okay? If you double click on it, you can just come over here to the drive and change the image type to this, okay? So DVD ISO. And for the interface, I'm just gonna go with USB. So we're going to only use this ISO one time to install the Kali Linux. Then we're going to change it later on. Okay, but make sure you do that. So after that, I'm just gonna go with new drive. And this time I'm gonna go with NVMe, this one. And for the size, I'm just gonna go with something like 40 gigabytes. It's gonna be enough. I'm gonna say create. And right now I have the USB drive, okay, with the CD DVD thingy. And for here I have the NVMe. So I'm going to use this USB drive to install the Kali Linux into the NVMe that we have created. And after the installation, I'm just actually going to delete the USB or just make it down. And here you go. As you can see, once we open that, now it opened. Now it will take us a little bit to install this ISO to this virtual machine. Just click on enter and it will ask you some kind of questions and it's gonna take some time. All you gotta do is just follow along. And most of the time we're just gonna go with the default options. So here you go. Right now let me show you my machine, my architecture one last time, so that if you're having some problems you can compare it with yourself. Okay, but right now we're just gonna have to wait until it starts to install something and it starts to ask us questions. By the way, it's gonna take something like a half an hour to complete this. So that is why we have tried the VirtualBox first. And by the way, after you install this, it won't take this much to just start your Kali Linux, obviously. Now it's asking for my country, my language. I'm just gonna go with the defaults like English, United States. Over here it's asking for the keyboard. I'm just actually going to go for the Turkish one because I'm using Turkish keyboard, Q layout. If you're using your own local keyboard, make sure you find it and hit enter. Okay, and that's it. Now it's going to start installation, and after a while it may ask you some questions. I'm gonna walk you all through it, but most of the time, again, I'm just gonna go with the default selections. So if you see any question that you cannot see in the lecture, just go with the default option. Many of those can be changed later on anyway. Okay, this is just for installing the Kali Linux. So here it asks for a host name. You can say Kali in the host name, but it really doesn't matter. It should have only one word. I'm just gonna leave it as Kali and hit on continue and just choose the continue. Domain name can be something like organizational domain like kali.org, or if you're working for a company, companyname.org. I'm just gonna write something like atil.com or atil. It really doesn't matter. It's just configuring the domain name. So I'm just gonna write my own name over here like atil.com. Okay, it's not even like a real website for me. And you can just write whatever you want and hit continue. Once we do that, it will ask for the full name of the user. Okay, so if you don't want to give your full name, that's okay. Just give your nickname and something like that. I'm just gonna say Atil. It's gonna ask me for a username. I'm gonna leave it as Atil. It's gonna ask me for a password. I'm just gonna give a password. And by the way, we're gonna use this username and password in order to log into the Kali Linux. So make sure you choose something relevant. Okay, these are not just for typing purposes. We're actually going to use that information later on. So I gave my password, I gave my username. It's asking for my time zone and stuff. I'm just gonna go with the default options. I don't like to give away my location this easily. And after that, let's see, yeah, here you go. It says that I'm gonna use the entire disk. Yeah, go ahead and use the entire disk, and entire disk refers to the NVMe that we created. So just hit enter. If you see something like asking for using the entire disk and like that, I'm gonna just hit enter. I'm not even going to change anything. I'm just going to go for the default stuff. Okay, so you should do the same thing as well. Here it says that, yeah, I'm gonna write this. I'm going to say enter. By writing, it means that Yeah, here you can say yes, write changes to the disk. By writing, it means that installing this Kali Linux to the actual NVMe that we have specified. Okay, so it's gonna install the thing. And here you go. Now installation has been completed, but it took me back to the installation thingy. So the reason, I'm going to just close it down, and I'm going to show you the reason. I'm going to edit the Kali Linux. The reason is we still have this USB drive over here connected to the ISO. What we need to do instead, we need to just make sure that USB drive is gone, and we're going to use the NVMe drive to launch the application. In order to do that, I'm just going to say move up, and NVMe drive will be moving up, and then I can just run this. Okay. Now it should actually take us to the page where we actually log in with the username and the password that we have chosen once we installed this. And remember, we used the Kali or root and tour in the previous lectures while we used the VirtualBox. In this case, we're going to use our own username, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to explain the different kind of users in Kali Linux and in Linux in general, so you will have no kind of difficulty adjusting to the course or any other lecture that we will be doing. Okay? So here you go. Finally, it asks me for the username and the password. So I'm just gonna go with Kali. I can try to log in with the Kali, but most probably it won't work because we haven't specified that username. Okay, let's try to log in with that, but it won't accept it most probably. Yeah, it kind of stuck for me. Yeah, here you go. It didn't accept that. So I'm just gonna give the Atil and my password over here and hit enter. Here you go. Now it accepted it. So if you're here, then you have a working Kali Linux. As you can see, it's a little bit laggy for me. It got stuck now. Again, it seems like it got stuck. If you come across in a situation like this, what you need to do, you need to close down the Kali Linux, go into the settings and try to give it more RAM, more CPUs from the settings, and maybe less RAM and less CPUs. Again, you have to optimize your own host computer RAM and this virtual machine RAM as well. So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger and wait until Kali Linux actually gathers its things. Here you go. It started to appear, and here you go. We see the desktop. If you see the desktop, then it's okay. We're gonna see how to adjust the views, how to adjust the screen resolution, how to change the keyboards, how to do the general settings stuff. But if you see the section, if you see the desktop, then it's okay. You have your Kali Linux. Obviously, anytime you can just close this down and you can open it again. This is now your virtual machine. Hold on to it, but if you have any problems, feel free to delete it and then reinstall it later on. Again, I have installed virtual machines like 1,000 times. And again, it doesn't matter. We can just delete and reinstall it as much as we want. So by the way, if you go to terminal like this icon, you don't have to do that right now. I'm just going to explain what a terminal is later on. But in the lectures, you will see that your username appears over here, whereas we will see that I'm using Kali or root, and I will explain the differences between them. Don't worry about it. Again, we're going to learn how to use Linux in general. So it won't depend on the username, it won't depend on the desktop picture, it won't depend on the menus and stuff. So if you have a working Kali Linux, that is okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this down and I will be meeting you within the next lecture.